what is your thoughts about the state of omnichannel advertising and some roadblocks and where we might go and what needs to be done to make it a reality?
Yeah, well, as you said, this has been the aspirational dream for years for anyone who's been in the marketing industry. But I think we're at a really interesting pivot and transformational point right now. The technology is at a much better place, although we still have a ways to go. Our teams are actually learning. I think the skill set of marketers has changed dramatically over the last 7 years. You're seeing now that engagement on knowing how we use these analytics and data and the personalization and where we need to go. Our customers are certainly rapidly changing, and I think what we've experienced since the beginning of this year has shown remarkable advancement in terms of what consumers expect and where they are. And ultimately, we're at this point where we really need to now bring all those elements together at another level, really learn how to use it productively. And I think that's where we are today.
And what about bridging the open web and the walled gardens? How is that going to be engineered or managed or approached?
Well, we're definitely deploying teams and technology that are looking to connect the dots and help us identify, where we can go and what we can do. It's still clearly a challenge. In my dream world, we are seamless and able to go across all of those because that's what the consumer is doing. So we're definitely working on that, and we continue to work with our partners who have the walled gardens to improve on that. I think that's also why we have to have the role of technology and underlying software platforms like many provide. Certainly Mediaocean is one example who's really attempting to bridge that gap and help us as we get better at it. And I think it's in the interest of the consumer overall to do that.
And in terms of reorganizing and approaching technology, what about reorganizing your team and also your work, your expectations from the media agencies in this omnichannel world? Sort of organizationally, what needs to be done?
Oh, that is the great question. I think I spend about 80% of my time right now on that. So first, I think we are looking at across our own ecosystem with our partners and agencies and internally, do we have the right skill sets and capabilities overall? And we're actually on an accelerated developmental path on that to make sure that everyone does have that learning, because I think we've advanced a lot over the last 5 years, but we need to push it even further. The second thing that I think we need to do is make sure that we are developing internally what we own and what we do. So the issue of data and how data is managed, privacy, obviously an accelerated and much more important issue. So I think internally we need to have those skill sets. So we're looking at how do we develop that place for analytics, data warehousing, everything internally. And then how is it actually able to partner with all of our capabilities? We use M1 aggressively. How can we make sure that we're ingesting that and that the learnings are able to be shared across the teams? Because, also in the past, we always had the learnings that the client kept. Our agency partners were, doing a lot of things, but they weren't getting the full set of information. So we're really working to define what we insource completely, how we work with all these platforms that are being developed, and then we're continually on the hunt for the MarTech and the software platforms that enable us to do all that.
Deb, so big changes in terms of the television, a radically changed upfront marketplace, and now the emergence of CTV and all these services, the so-called streaming wars, lots of opportunities. Where does that put GM in your thinking?
So we've been on an incredibly aggressive path. I think it's really important for us to understand who our high propensity audiences are, and then to start buying against that instead of the normal, let's buy 18 to 54. So we have done that. We have the data and the capabilities now that can do that. We're looking for ways and partners that can help us be even more aggressive. So almost all of our buying is now focused on these high propensity audiences. We're doing audience-based targeting. And I think we've made that pivot distinctively. So that's really framing up the discussions that we're having in the upfronts and with all of our partners. And I think what's really interesting, this Upfront for me, having been in many over the years, over decades, is a true pivot point. Our partners at the networks have understood the need for everyone to have more flexibility and agility. So I think that that's what we're going to see going forward. It changes the game completely and reflects this need. I always use the benchmark. We discovered during COVID that we can actually do rapid transformation in 18 days. We developed a whole way of manufacturing ventilators in 18 days. That's the new benchmark for agility for everything that we at General Motors do going forward. So it impacts how we think about our investments, our media investments, where we put dollars on TV and where it goes.
Big changes in the automotive industry and the economy and society on so many levels these last few months. I wanted to ask about marketing of automobiles through COVID, post-COVID, through all these changes that we've seen. Give us some ideas about the, marketing in terms of virtual showrooms to creative to, whatever you can share. Tell us what's changed and what might have implications for the future.
I think our whole network, both internally and through our dealerships, realized the rapid change that consumers are doing. So of course, when we went through the shutdowns, everyone went significantly online, became more comfortable with that, started transacting. So that has set a new benchmark and probably helped accelerate a pivot that's been taking a lot longer to achieve. So we're addressing that right now in how we go to market. The idea of virtual events has, to me, been absolutely eye-opening. I think we started with something called Cadillac Live, where we started a live showroom where you could actually interact with the person, but they could do demos, show everything, actually respond to whatever you want if you set up time for a video chat. So we're seeing increased usage of that, and our dealers are aligning with us on that because they find it also incredibly useful as we respond to customers, get them the information that they need, really show and help them through their shopping journey. I think that's going to be permanent. And then finally, as we look at the ideas of everything from the events that we do in person to auto shows to how we show up for any of the sports, et cetera, I think in the longer term future, we will definitely continue to have this combination of virtual and in-person. Right now, we're much more heavily skewed virtual because that we can't safely participate in in-person events. But I think that's going to have a profound impact, and it's accelerated all the virtual and immersive technology. So I'm seeing things even this week that are so far advanced from what we were looking at even last year. So our first thing is, we're going to CES, and I think that will be a really good pivot point about how we do all of these as we go into the future virtually. So big changes, permanent learning and changes in how we all engage. And the final point I would say is, despite all of this, consumers are still looking for a very relevant, entertaining, engaging way of sharing information, doing everything. So we can't forget that. I think that frames up everything. I know personally, that's what I want. That's what we're seeing consumers want. And so it sets a new bar for that too.